Hey, there he is.
There
How
I
you
am. I was in the other Zoom room.
How you doing?
I'm good. It's like it's really quiet in here.
Yeah, I got one person in right now, Steve. I know Steve.
Hey, Steve. Hope you are well.
Hey
Oh, we're
guys, how are
working.
you?
Yeah, really
Good,
well. Thank
good.
you,
We're
buddy.
good.
How about you?
Not bad, not bad.
Good, man.
Excited. I
Good.
saw my email pop in. I said, let me check this out.
Oh, yeah. All the
I'm
juicy stuff.
waiting for see if anybody joins.
Yeah, no problem. We'll give it a couple of minutes. I appreciate I was late in as well. So,
Chat about other things while you
What's that?
chat about other things while you wait.
Yeah, right now I'm trying to make sure it's streaming on Facebook.
it says live on Facebook in the top corner, if that helps.
Yeah, I have no idea because I'm not. I usually don't look at it from my side, but
Yeah, don't worry.
I figure while we're waiting to see if anybody comes on. If not, we'll just have a powwow session.
100%. Yeah. Well, listen, I mean, I'm sure people will get the benefit from it on repeat anyway.
Yeah.
Stephen just gets it firsthand.
Yeah. It's well, we met a couple of weeks ago.
We did.
So since then you started a TV show, or
Yeah. So it was originally a podcast. I have service-based businesses, business service offerings. So real estate is my passion. That's the industry I grew up in. I'm a quantity surveyor by trade. And yeah, I kind of branched off into weird and wonderful things, sort of found myself in the world of tech and working on some pretty impressive, sort of innovative VR and AI projects and things, which was awesome. But until recently, if I'm honest, I think my resume probably didn't make much sense. There was just bits of everything. But I'd say recently it's kind of all come together. I've always enjoyed broadcasting as part of a way of kind of generating business and brand awareness for what I do. I've never been the cold call guy, and I don't understand marketing well enough by myself to go and kind of just implement those things. The thing that I knew how to do was to create an audience. I knew how to get people's attention. I knew how to get in front of people. And the best way to do that was by broadcasting, because instead of having one-on-one conversations, you could have one to thousands, and you could get your message across still in a personal way, but in a time that they wish to engage with that content. I mean, you'd be amazed how many people email you in the middle of the night because they've just finished listening to your podcast or whatever whilst they were finishing off their admin late at night and there was no one to talk to. So I guess the thing is about those kind of conversations is you can be really good at business development and lead generation. You can be great at those things, but they're one-on-one conversations. And once they're gone, they're gone. But broadcast and content lives forever. So the more of that stuff you have out there, the better things become. It's almost like building layer upon layer. So we originally started off with the podcast. I love that. Loads of reasons why I loved it. You get to meet some awesome people. I think from a sales perspective and a business owner's perspective, I got in front of people that otherwise wouldn't have talked to me. It's very hard when you work in marketing and you work in recruitment, which are the two businesses that I run, my service businesses. Most people don't want to talk to you about those two things. If I call a CEO of a company and say, hey, I want to have a chat to you about your recruitment, I mean, even I'm bored by that conversation. So they definitely don't want to have that conversation.
yeah,
Whereas if you call them and say, hey, look, I've got this podcast. It's going out to this audience. I've saw as a business you're doing this, this, and this. Could you spare 30, 60 minutes sometime so we could record some content together? We'll share it out and give some publicity to what you're doing. And I'd love to hear your insight. 9 times out of 10, you're getting a call back or you're getting put through to the top guy or girl. It works phenomenally well and it works every time. Plus, when you're growing an audience, one of the most common questions people ask when it comes to kind of publicizing content and all that kind of juicy stuff is, well, how do you grow an audience? And there's loads of ways of doing it. So this might not be the answer for you. This is just the answer that worked for me. What worked for me was reciprocal marketing. So linking with people who would have a benefit from my audience, as small or as large as that was, that I would also have a benefit to theirs, but we didn't clash. We didn't offer conflicting services or conflicting resources. So you link up with those people, and it's almost like going through the leagues. Okay. So there is people, and I don't mean this in a disrespectful way, but there is people who will speak to you kind of when you're a new podcast just starting out, and there are larger celebrities that would look at you and say, there's no value in that for me. You have 500 listeners. Why would I come? But as you grow, so does the audience that you can reach through your guests. So once you kind of, I'd say it's that initial slog that puts a lot of people off. They think, oh, we're only getting a couple of hundred listeners. This is silly. We get more responses than this from email marketing. Let's just go back to that. I would strongly recommend that you don't do that. Push through the barrier, because once it clicks, it's fun and it's easy. And that's another word I use lightly. But when you have a decent network, people who also have good networks want to get involved with you. So I'll give you a real life example. So our show that we've set up is called Billionaires in Boxes. It goes out across satellite TV, across 14 million homes across Southern Africa. It then goes on to Amazon series, and it's also going on to Binge Networks TV, which is pretty cool.
That's cool. Yeah.
You can also watch it on YouTube and Facebook and all that kind of stuff, but it's a nice audience. And we also own Billionaires in Boxes Media. So we now have 3 service offerings. The 2 I've mentioned before, the marketing and advertising. We offer the recruitment retain solution, and we also have a broadcast solution, which is to help businesses and content providers get themselves out there and introduce themselves to a new audience. So that could be a large business who want to use a podcast for employee engagement and training and all that kind of juicy stuff. It's too large a business, but a chat with the CEO could be personal, one-on-one for everybody. There's some huge benefits in that. I have primarily used it for sales and lead generation and brand awareness. So it's phenomenal for all that kind of stuff. So we help people do that. And what I've been really surprised with is YouTubers who have kind of 2-3 million subscribers on their accounts are now coming to us saying, can we create content exclusively for your channel? Because we'll get paid for what we're doing there. We'll be able to bring our traffic with us to the TV channel, and then they'll stick around and watch other content. And likewise, we can use your audience across Southern Africa and globally that we may not necessarily have, introduce them to our content and direct them towards our YouTube channel. So we're all winning. And then that's the joy of reciprocal marketing, is that everybody's getting a slice of the pie and everybody's benefiting from it. So
it sounds like what you're saying is, it doesn't matter where you're at.
No.
And even if you're just starting out, you're going to get, and it doesn't matter what business you're in, whenever you're starting out, you're going to get the experienced people that are like, it's not for me. And it's like, that's understood. But for people who else is starting out, it gives them the opportunity to look at what you're doing and learn from what you're doing and grow.
I mean, look, there's a reason that PR and publicists exist. It's because when individuals want attention, they go to those people who generate that interest for them, because it's not the norm that people will receive emails or phone calls saying, hey, I'd love you to come on my podcast. That's still quite rare. So whilst you will get a lot of people that do say no to you, you'll get a lot of people that say yes. And I think you'll probably surprise yourself with the people that do say yes. I always find it's the people at the top of the tree that are more willing to give their time. If you kind of get someone at mid-management or sort of the low level sort of senior board members, they're rushed off their feet. They're working 15, 16-hour days. They don't have time for podcasts. Whereas the CEO, who actually is sat there thinking about public perception and who knows about them and who knows about the good deeds that they're doing, and are they doing enough with their marketing to spread who they are, not just what they do. And the podcast is the perfect place for that, because it's not a sales pitch. It's I don't want you to sell to me. I want you to talk to me. I want to learn from you. I want to understand who you are and what you do and how you've got there, so that other people can be inspired by that.
Yeah, exactly. That's what most people look for, is how did you get there? What did you do to get there?
100%.
How'd you build your network to grow into that position and that business to grow? Just a brief, to let people know where you're at right now, like located physically, because we didn't get there.
Yes. I am currently in the UK. I'm just outside Liverpool. So I have a lot of blood in this soil. I'm currently doing my genealogy family tree, and so far we've got 4 centuries of Liverpool in my bloodline. So, yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm Scouse.
So your business is all in Liverpool. And
No,
you're doing,
not at
no?
all. So I'm actually the only person for my business based in the UK.
Okay.
We talk about global networking, and I've been doing that for 10 years, sort of remote working, and it allows me to, I say it allows me to hire the best people in the world, not the best people within an hour's drive of my office. It also allows me to, without trying to sound very coy about it, play around in different currencies. So there are certain countries where I can get the best of the best for the same price that I would pay for somebody average here in the UK. So it's a win-win, and you know, they're loving the fact that they're earning pounds and dollars in whatever currency they're in. So quite a few of my business partners are in South Africa. The rand is, I think, about 23 rand to the pound at the moment. So pretty poor. It's getting worse because of a lockdown and everything, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But you know, some people in South Africa are looking at their current economy and are thinking, my money's not going to go very far, because obviously the salaries don't go up when prices do. That's not how inflation works. But the people earning pounds and dollars, they're loving it. You know, long may this continue as far as they're concerned. So, you know, the aim behind the network, because it'll give you an idea of how we all work together, was Billionaires in Boxes. We want to become the world's largest global entrepreneur broadcast network. So the idea is that we want to bring the best mentors, the best mindsets, the best coaches from all around the world, people with proven actionable advice, not the fake sheikhs and these gurus that are out there selling these courses. And actually they make all their money by selling you the course on how to do it. They don't actually do it themselves anymore. None of that. You know, these are experts at the top of their game globally who are coming to share best practice. I often joke and say we should have called the network What I Wish I Knew, because I hear advice, and the amount of times I think I wish I knew that 10 years ago when I lost 30 grand on that deal.
Yeah, it's always that way, right?
But you know what, the mistakes we made are what's got us to where we are. So I feel really blessed. I mean, every day I love what I do. I work with amazing companies. We get to be very picky about the clients that we work with now, which I love. We bring our clients in on our show because we show behind the scenes working, how we work together, so they get broadcast globally as well and get message for what they're doing. So it's just a huge win-win situation. But it took a lot of graft to get here, which is why I kind of like doing things like this, because my attitude is, if I can do it, anybody can do it. You know, I didn't have anything special. I just did it. I just got on with it. And I almost got to the point with the podcast where I didn't care if anybody was listening. I was enjoying talking to the person that I was talking to. So if nobody else was listening, then sucks to them. Yeah. But it turns out people were listening, because I think within 6 to 7 months, we'd gone from a handful of 100 listeners to minimum of 10,000 within the first 24 hours. That kind of then grew from there. We got offered a radio show in Southern Africa, which then grew into a TV show, which then later grew into, in essence, we had these ideas. The channel owners came to us and said, okay, we want to create content. What are your thoughts? I'd previously grown and sold 2 sports broadcasting networks, online networks previously, using the exact same method I'm teaching you here in terms of reciprocal marketing. Start building up, find people to come on, leverage the audience, scratch each other's backs, and it grows very quickly, very, very quickly. And I sort of grew and sold those 2 networks that way. So I know the channel owners were sort of saying, well, look, we have these 2, especially at the moment, we have these 2 live broadcast studios, right? And they're based in Zambia. So point number 1, they can't go to the studio to record because they're in lockdown. Point number 2, their internet isn't strong enough at home to allow them to broadcast from home. So right now you have 2 channels showing repeat content that still have advertisers and sponsors paying money that are going, where's the content? So we started off with, well, let's us do a show. We'll jump on and do that. So we have a show 3 times a week, which is called Billionaires in Boxes TV. And it's exactly what I've just talked about. It's interviewing experts from all around the world in different fields, picking their brains. You know, we dig into who they are. We have a session which is called Zoom In, which is a closer look at their industry, so they can kind of tell us what they do and how they do it. And then my favorite section of the show is called Brainstorming, and it's just 15 minutes of us firing questions at them so that we can work out the inside of their head and say, okay, so let's pretend that me, the co-host, and you are all going into business together. What's the next 5 steps? What do we do? What do we do after this meeting? And it's great. it's actionable advice that people can either be inspired by and take a spin off and do what they need to do with, or just do that. I mean, I'm a big believer in momentum. You take those 5 steps that we've talked about on the show that's most relevant to you, or shows that are most relevant to you, you're already further ahead than the people that haven't even started yet.
Yeah. And these people you talk to, they're all different industries. They're not a specific single industry, right? So
Not
you're
at
getting
all.
input from people from across the board from
Yep.
different industries and perspectives,
Yep.
which is a benefit because you could take anything they're saying from any industry and apply it to what you're doing.
Well, I'll give you a great example of that. We recorded 2 on the same day about a week or so ago. The first one was a guy who I'll give you a direction to his stuff later because he's really good. He owns a radio and podcast hosting network, and he also hosts a free matchmaker site where people can meet guests for their podcast. Another very easy tool. Go on there and set up a profile, and within 10 minutes, you will very comfortably have 5 or 6 people requesting to come on yours and vice versa. And you get a lot of podcast trades, and, you know, within no time you're up and running. So he was the first person that we went with, and he was all about online broadcasting and how to podcast correctly and the training and all that kind of stuff. The next person we met with was one of Tony Robbins' health experts who goes around the world with him, speaking at his events, talking about optimal state being and all that kind of stuff. So it was these couldn't be further apart. One is sort of new age cutting tech, and the other is sort of your health. And we got to kind of dig into the whole, what comes first, health or wealth? Do we just run ourselves into the ground and then when we make enough money, hire a personal trainer so our wife doesn't leave us? Or do we, need to be fit and healthy to be able to achieve success in the first place? And it was nice to be able to get that from an expert. It was nice to hear somebody who, understands the science behind all that stuff say, well, here's what you need and here's how it works. And, we even got into the conversation of like medication and painkillers and stuff, and him saying, that's not always a good thing because your body is trying to tell you something. You need to listen to those messages rather than try and mute them with pain medication.
Yeah.
And you know what? And it was just a fascinating insight. But those 2 conversations alone, I mean, I learned so much from both of them, but they couldn't have been further apart in what they taught me.
Yeah, that's the benefit of doing it, that you're meeting these people from different industries and learning from everybody, basically. It's a lot of people think, well, this is the industry I'm in and this is what I should focus on and just talk to people in this industry, from the top down or just from the top to the middle and leave the bottom guy alone. Mm-hmm. But in reality, you can learn a lot more from other industries and experts in those industries just by what they're telling you, Well,
you'd also be surprised on how quickly these things pick up. So often people think, oh, I'll wait till someone else is doing it and then I'll do it. I really don't like that approach, if I'm honest. My attitude has always been, don't reinvent the wheel, but also don't be afraid to look at what's happening in other industries and try and learn lessons from them as well. Because if you can bring the best of different industries together and bring it to your sector, it's a real game changer. I'll give you an example. So when I first set up my first recruitment podcast, it was probably about 5 or 6 years ago, something like that. There was 10 in the UK, 10 recruitment podcasts at that time. There are 27,000 on iTunes right now.
Yeah.
Because everybody's now realized that it's a great way of talking to people. It's a great way of doing this. Hey, he's got the CEO of that company that we've been cold calling for 6 months and never got a call back from. How did he get hold of him? Oh, he invited him on a podcast. Well, we need a podcast. And that was where it came from. And it just happens overnight like that. I mean, look at real estate, right? Real estate is a great example, okay? Especially sort of the brokerage stage and for real estate agents. For a long time, it was the methodology of people by people. And I still firmly believe that, people by people. But in my opinion, the real estate sector globally was pretty afraid of technology. It was almost seen as like it could try and replace some of our jobs, or, I don't want some machine coming in and doing this. Nobody's going to want to do all of this stuff online. I mean, do you remember that? No one's going to want to book a house viewing online.
Yeah.
Well, look how that worked out.
Happen.
But then all of this stuff kind of comes together and you realize that actually technology, prop tech, real estate tech, whatever you want to call it, there's a lot of nonsense out there. So there's a lot of developers who are developing stuff just for the sake of it, in my opinion. But there are also some real golden nuggets out there that when plugged into your business, they actually complement what you do because they allow you to be able to focus on the bits that you're best at. You can automate your appointment booking or your lead generation, or you could, automate your feedback emails or your follow-up chase calls or whatever it is, your messages to text people to let them know there's going to be an open house. You could do all of this in an automated way and save yourself time so that you can reinvest that back into doing what you do, being in front of the customer and making the sale.
Yeah.
And I love it when kind of technology like that kind of comes together. But I think for a long time, people were very afraid of it. And I'd love to see more people within real estate getting in on the prop tech game, on the podcast game, because I've seen a lot of people, especially here in Europe and in Asia as well, but Europe in particular, there's a large prop tech podcast scene. And it's been phenomenal for cutting the wheat from the chaff, showing who's actually worth listening to and who's not, because those ones who are on a podcast offering free value, you listen to one or two of their shows, you know they're the real deal.
Right. So one of the things people can do to build their brand or themselves is start doing podcasts and then start getting bigger people out there to join them on the podcast.
Well, look, that was how I did it. Okay. But it doesn't really matter, in my opinion, what kind of method you take. So if you've got a better looking face than me, get on camera, create YouTube videos, put them on Facebook, create a Facebook group and create fans, because you'd be surprised how few fans you actually need to be able to sell to. If you've got a Facebook group of 500 people, but those 500 people all love what you're about, they'll buy and sell your product. They'll buy or sell your service because they're your fans. So sometimes even just being able to present to a Facebook group alone is enough, and you just use bits of content to drive people there. You don't want to do a podcast, you don't want to get on camera, do a blog. It's not as effective, but do a blog and you could still do interviews with people, and you could try and get those CEOs. You could try and get those interviews published in larger magazines who are always looking for content. There's loads of ways of getting yourself out there. So if people are not doing it at this stage, it's usually because of two things. They're either scared and don't know which way to start. They'd quite like to, but don't know where to begin, or they're just lazy. And they're the two reasons that I think most people have. And fear is something that shouldn't stop us, especially when, that's why I'm doing this, right? Because people like me who knew next to nothing about it have come in, made it work for their business, and it's now grown into a TV show and then a TV network. I never thought that was going to happen. I didn't think that was on the cards for me when I was doing my surveying degree. That was never something that I predicted. But I love it. I absolutely love every single day of it.
I think that's key. Like you were saying, you just got to get over the fear and just do it. And who cares if you screw up at first? You're going to make mistakes, but you just grow and you adjust and you adapt them, and just keep doing it, and you'll grow and people will be attracted to what you're saying, and more people will join. And then you get the bigger people that want to join because they want to be a part of what you are and what you're doing.
Well, our first episode for our new series aired yesterday, right? And I was getting messages and there was comments underneath, and it was all really positive. It was all looking really good. The numbers were fantastic. We were really pleased with it. And I watched it through my fingers because I hated everything about it, because I could see the things where we'd gone wrong, and I could hear that thing where the mic popped, and I didn't like the way the lighting was. And so I know that every episode, we've already recorded 8 so far of the new season, even though episode 1 has only just gone out. But I know that every episode gets better because we learn from it. You should listen to my first podcast. They were horrific. You see this thing and you think, whoa, he must know what he's doing. No, I'll tell you how I started. I'll see if I can find them. It's like headphones with a microphone and my iPhone. That was how I started off doing podcasting.
Yeah. You got to start somehow, right? It doesn't matter with what, just get started.
100%. And when I started, it was really hard because there wasn't really any podcast hosts out there specifically. Like I was using SoundCloud and trying to make it work and multi-purpose it that way. And there was no integration to things like iTunes and Spotify then either. So it was hard, right? It was really hard.
Yeah.
Now it's so easy. Like you just sign up for one website, host it, and it publishes it all for you, puts out all the new episodes. You can record during it. It's got free training videos to teach you how to do it. I think the most expensive one's going to cost you about $10 a month.
Yeah, it's kind of like a no-brainer at this point with the way the world is and the technology that's at your fingertips. And I've been saying that on Facebook Live over the past few weeks that, people who are out there right now, you're stuck, you don't know what to do. You're either unemployed or you're in a job where it's not going anywhere or whatever it is. Start learning. There's so much out there. When I started, 10 years ago, just think about 10 years ago where where the real estate world was, where the world was with technology. Very few people were using like online meetings and podcasts and such. And now everybody's doing webinars and everybody's doing video meetings and things of that, so that it's so easy. And if you're not sure, you can always Google it and learn it. You know, there were certain things that years ago I'd be like, I had to go to the library and do something. You know, there was no internet. You know, and I think people forget about how easy it is now compared to how difficult it was not that long ago.
I mean, you can even bootstrap it, is my point. So, I mean, like, think about most podcast interviews will be one-on-one, because any more than 3 people starts to get a bit crowded in terms of the conversation for the audio. Because obviously they don't have the visual cues to see who someone's going to be speaking. So it's usually better with 2 people. So I'll use 2 examples because one you've just given, but you know, you could go on Zoom. We're on Zoom right now, right? Zoom allows free unlimited calls between 1-to-1 people, and it's recorded. And if you record the meeting, you'll see that they give you an MP4 video file that you could use and repurpose on YouTube and all that kind of stuff. And it also gives you a separate audio file that you can literally just drag straight into something like podcast.co or Stitcher or something like that. And your podcast is ready to go. It's literally that simple when you first get started. Don't worry about editing the sound. Don't worry about any of that nonsense. Just, you know, you can clip it in and out, of course. I like to use a clap point. So I get both people on either side to do 3, 2, 1 clap. So we have a sync point. I'll edit it to that. I'll have a couple of periods of silence afterwards. And away you go. But you could use Zoom. I mean, Zoom has a built-in audio enhancer feature. So it's cleaning up the audio for you. It's like an editing tool plugged in. And that's something you can do for free. Like, you could do that right now. There's no reason that you can't do that. Use the example you just used. And I appreciate that nobody watching this, I expect, given the kind of group it's going into, finds himself unemployed. But if they do, so having worked in recruitment for sort of 10, 15 years, yeah, you know, it's tough trying to get a job out there, because, you know, I know that most of the applicant tracking systems will only ever show the recruiter the top 30% of CVs that match the right keywords. So if you haven't written your resume in the right way, you're not getting an interview. And it's not exactly a skill they teach us in school, is it? You know, how to keyword your resume to get a job. Suddenly you need to know SEO to get a job, which is crazy. But I'll tell you what does work. So let's use this as an example, okay? So Chris is on here. Chris, I don't know. I suspect you have a job, but I'm going to use your name because it's the first one I saw, okay? So Chris needs to find a job. Is applying for loads of jobs. Let's be honest, most people aren't even replying because they're getting inundated with emails, the ones that you are getting responses from. Some are lining up interviews further down the line, but they don't even seem like that interesting a job, to be honest. You just need to pay the bills right now. That cycle sucks. So let's change it. Let's do something completely different. Make a list of the top 20 companies that you would love to work for in your area. Start a podcast called Find Chris a Job, and contact all the CEOs of those companies and say, I'm looking at all the best companies in the area that I'd love to work for and why. I'd love to learn more about you, why you do it. I'd love to share with my listeners why I feel your reputation is great, why I'm interested in you, which will give you a plug, but I'd love to learn more about what you do as a business, et cetera, et cetera. You send out 20 of those invitations, you know, and do 10 of those podcasts, you'll have 5 job offers.
Yeah, that's the way the future is. That's the way the world is now. Everything's online, and people they'd rather just look at that or listen to that instead of meeting you one-on-one, and then they'll get down the road and do that later.
It's like the best possible interview, because let's be honest, when we go to an interview, it's always really awkward, isn't it? Like I'm in businessman interview mode, and you know, depending on which country in the world you're in, you're also thinking, there's so many things I can't say so that I don't get sued. It's quite an uncomfortable conversation. Meanwhile, the candidate sat there going, don't screw up, and don't tell them that you left your last job because of that incident at the Christmas party with the boss's wife. You know, just all this stuff that you've going through your head that you don't want to say, the stuff that you do want to say, like, what was that stat? I need to remember that because it's one of the best things about me. It's uncomfortable, right? Yeah. A podcast isn't. A podcast is essentially, you know, I even like to put my guys at ease. Depending on what time the show is, I used to say, grab yourself a cup of tea, or I'd say, grab yourself a beer. I'm going to grab myself a beer. Let's just chill for an hour and chew the fat. I want to learn this, and this about you. But other than that, it's going to be pretty conversational, and let's just go with the flow. And most people like that. In fact, most people resonate with that really well. Yeah,
it's pretty laid back because you don't have anybody staring at you, right? You're not you're not being drilled like you would be for an interview or,
Nope.
Some other type of opportunity where you got to get drilled for, because they want deep information just to see if you're the proper candidate,
Well, at that point, they're ticking boxes based on skill set because that's what they're needing to do. They're needing to qualify candidates based on skill set. But actually, what the podcast allows you to do is have a personality one-on-one with that person. And there might be CEOs that you meet from companies that you'd quite like to work with that you think, I don't want to work with that guy. I don't want to work with that girl. I didn't get a good feeling about them, but, there's nothing wrong. I've always felt talking about your feelings is not wrong. And I know that's a weird thing for a guy to say, especially of my generation. But, I often get to a conversation with somebody and say, I don't know if you're feeling this. Like, I'm really resonating with this. Like, I feel like there's something going on here. I get exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
I feel like you're on board with what we're doing. Do you want to maybe explore doing something a bit deeper together? Maybe we could even do a joint venture. And just the amount of times that people go, oh, I'm definitely up for that. Yeah, sure. What can I do?
Yeah, because it's not like, again, you're not during an interview. There's no gelling. It's
No.
There's nothing there. But during a podcast or something like this, you can communicate differently and openly, and you get the vibe going. And if it's a good vibe, you can continue. And if it's not, you just end it and say, okay, we'll talk later, or maybe next time, or whatever, and you move on. But there's no like stress. There's no, any of that involvement that way.
Well, I'll give you a real working example for real estate businesses, because this is one we actually implemented for a real estate business that trades globally, but we were doing it out their main office in Southern Africa. They've got an office in London as well, but it's a smaller office, and then they have one in Singapore, and I think they have a satellite office in Hong Kong, but I don't know. I might have just made that bit about Hong Kong up. I can't remember. But essentially, I was talking to them about their business and sort of how they were listing properties. And they were like every other agent, right? They were listing some individuals. They loved the block stuff. It was great when they could get that stuff on. But like everybody else, everybody wants the new builds. Everybody wants the new developments. It's not that easy to get them. And it became, especially in that market, it became kind of a race to the bottom on fees. Like, the only way to attract a developer to give you their project was to just offer less than the next person was prepared to, and almost kind of play like how low bingo to see who won, which is a horrific way of doing business. I don't want to do that. That's awful. Like, even when you win the business, you're going to begrudge it because you're going to know you only got it because you're charging less than everybody else. That sucks. Like, nobody wants that relationship. Like, you don't feel valued by the developer now. So how are you going to feel passionate about selling their development when you think the guy's a cheap muppet?
You do everything by the cheap and not by the quality.
Exactly. And then you've got to go and now represent this talk to families that you love who are starting their journey together as a young family moving into their first home, and you've got to try and convince them that this joker who's taking all this money off you is a trustworthy guy to do business with and buy his development. So I said, no, we need to get away from that. So how do we get more of these developments? How do we get more of these blocks? And the answer was, you start a podcast where you interview the best developers and you ask them questions about the developments they do, because they're looking for exposure for what they do too. Especially as a real estate business, what's the one thing you already have? Data of people who buy real estate. Yep. So being able to say, I'm starting a podcast, I'm going to send it out to my mailing list. I've got this on LinkedIn, this across my social media pages. We've actually not done work together before, but I've loved some of your developments. I know you did this, this, and this. It was fantastic. Would you come on and have a talk with me about what we do? Again, build relationships with them, and you'd be surprised how many people will say, actually, we've got something new. Have you heard about the one we're doing on the east side? Because we've just got additional planning permission to add an extra blah, 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 blah. We're looking for a sole agent who could go exclusive. I've really got a good vibe from you. What do you think? Those conversations will come up time and again, and they're nice when they've grown organically like that. I mean, you've spoon fed them every step of the way, but I'll give you the weirdest analogy. When I got married, my father-in-law said, the best way to get your way is to convince her it was her idea. Right? That was what I was taught. So I kind of feel like the same thing with this, like the whole podcast. Like, I know why I'm inviting you on. You might know why I'm inviting you on, right. But we're playing this. Let's get to know each other. I really do want to hear what these people have to say, which is why there wasn't any trickery to it. Like, if I don't do business with you, then that's fine. If you wished, like that's kind of where I got to. I wanted to do business with people that I liked and that I resonated with. So we say no, I think, more times than we say yes at the moment. But I like that because it means that when we do say yes, it's because both sides are just as excited to be working with the other one. And I love that relationship. And the podcasting is a phenomenal way to build that relationship. So you're spoon feeding them the whole way through the process and then saying, oh, what a great idea. I never thought of us working together.
Yeah,
but it works.
Yeah, it definitely works. So that we had a couple weeks ago when we were talking, we had that exact conversation about, you know, not just being in your market area or in your country per se, but internationally, how you can do business now internationally without even having to physically be in touch with each other.
Of course you can. So you think about what I said about the podcasting, where once you're at a certain level, you can interview a higher level people. Well, think about where you are in terms of your real estate career. So you've already got bags and bags of experience. Let's say you've got 15 years real estate experience and you're always in the top 10% of sales within your office, right? Go and find somebody like that in Asia. Go and find somebody like that in Africa. Go and find someone like that in South America. Partner with them, and together you'll achieve far more than you could as individuals. Because if you collect it, I'm not suggesting you collectively go and link up with people who are lesser than where you are. You know, push that limit. Try and aim higher. I do. I mean, my aim is always to work with people that are better than me, so I can keep raising my level and keep raising my game. If I'm ever the best guy at my boardroom, I've done something wrong.
Yeah, well, that's what you want to do. You always want to surround yourself with people that are better than you, that know more than you, so you can get to their level. And
well, I want to get to the point where the most
that.
useful thing that I can do for my team is make the coffee while they make some ideas and decisions. Like that's like I want to get to the point where my job is to make sure that they're in a comfortable position to do their job because they're the geniuses out here. And my genius is bringing them together, and I'm good with that.
That's good. You know, I mean, like the one thing I like is when I get into roundtables, you know, roundtable discussions with people who are serious and who are knowledgeable. You know, because you get a lot of information. It doesn't even matter what industry they're in. Yeah. It's like you said, you're doing podcasts. We'll put people in a room, say 10 people on a call from different industries, and let's talk about marketing. Let's talk about let's try and help each other with maybe something we're stuck at or a problem we're having or something we want to do to get more knowledge. And you'll get a wealth of information from all these people, and it blows my mind every time I go to one, because I'm like, holy crap, now I got to go take a nap or something to decompress.
Well, that's what we have within our businesses. So when we have recruitment projects or when we have any of the marketing or broadcasting projects, we deliberately bring minds together who have worked in that. So let's say finance. Let's say we're working with a finance company and they want to start sort of spreading that message and getting it out there. Well, I'm not just going to speak to the finance person in the States who knows that person because they know that market already. I'm going to speak to the guy in Singapore and see what he's doing. And I'm going to speak to the guy in London and see what he's doing, and speak to the guy in Germany and see what he's doing. And I'm going to bring all this experience together and go back to the client with an international and global plan and say, this works, this doesn't, this works here, and I think it could work here if we leverage this and bring it together. This is the plan of action, and this is how we're going to do it. And you think about how long it would take you as an executive of a business to go around the world, or even to make the connections around the world, just to be able to get all of that information to make that decision. And the ability of a global business is we're so agile, we can do that overnight. You know, we signed up a client today. I know who the dream team is that's going to deliver it tomorrow. And they will be not the best people within an hour's drive of the office. They will be the best people globally for this project.
Yeah, no, definitely, because they have the experience and the knowledge, and then you're taking pieces from all of this and putting it together.
100%.
You know, and I'm listening to this, and, you know, based on our conversation, and I'm like, so, you know, there's going to be people on this webinar that are like, I'm not doing podcasts. That ain't for me. That's great.
So don't do the podcast then. Do something else, but do something. Yeah. You got to put your message out there.
You know, you want to be like, you know, people are always asking, like, how can I get there? Why am I not getting this? Why am I not achieving that? And these people are all having success doing it. And if you look at what they're doing, a lot of them are doing podcasts, a lot of them are doing webinars, a lot of them are doing meetings. And that's how you meet people, because you build relationships with other people.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
well, I've gone from doing the work and having a podcast to drive sales towards the work to the podcast, then the TV station becoming my main day-to-day focus, whilst I manage other people who deliver the work actually better than I could, to be perfectly honest. But that all grew out of that. Now, it doesn't even have to be, that doesn't have to be your life. You don't have to do that, right? But I want you to produce some sort of content. So I'll give you a great bit of advice, because you just talked about branding. So there's a website called alsoasked.com. So also ASKED.com. And what it essentially does is Google, when it first started, was a search engine, right? It would match keywords. But 70% of Google users now ask Google questions. So matching keywords isn't helpful because it's just going to show you loads of other people asking the same question as you. Google now needs to be able to rank answers. So you may remember that sort of about 12 to 18 months ago, quite a few websites started to get that up and down arrow behind people's answers when they put stuff online. That wasn't a coincidence. That was because Google was starting to grade who was worth listening to and who wasn't, and which answers to put out there. So what alsoasked.com does is it allows you to search for key phrases or search terms. It allows you to break it down in terms of language and location and all that kind of juicy stuff. And it will show you a flow chart of the most commonly asked questions based on your search term. So I would start there because realistically, once you zoom out, that final list will probably give you about 30 there or thereabouts, 30 of these questions. You've got content for years on there, haven't you? Let's be honest. But one way that I would definitely say, you want to build your brand, you want to be seen as an authority, create short videos answering those questions, just 2 to 3 minute long videos with you could even use PowerPoint, just have like a logo and the question written on it and then your answer. And it can be that straight. Get it on your website, get it pinned on your LinkedIn, get it put on your social media pages. Google will recognize that it's there. Get it on YouTube. Google will see it's there and it will pick it up. And when people start to search for those questions, which you know now know are the most commonly searched questions, your answers are there. Because also, we all use Google. I'm sure we do. How high up do you see videos? Video is like the form of media at the moment. It's what Google looks for first. So if there are going to be videos specifically answering the most commonly asked questions, Google will push them hard because that's exactly what they're trying to do. They're trying to drive video content.
So you should do a Facebook Live or maybe a short YouTube video.
I would do, if it was me, I would do a short YouTube video or even do a short Facebook Live, record the thing, stick it on YouTube, pin it to your LinkedIn, stick it on your website, make sure it's loaded so the backlinks are there. If you don't know how to do that, you can pay someone on Fiverr how to do it for like $20 and the whole thing will be done for you. There's no excuse for this. There really isn't. It's so simple to do and it's so effective. I mean, many people will sit and tell you, like, look at Gary Vaynerchuk, right? I love the guy, but he's all about create content. Well, what kind of content? Who for? Where's it going? There's not really any meat on the bones. It's all just kind of like create content, which is great, but what for? So look at it. Also asked, well, I've just given you about a year's worth of content, because if you just search for everything that you have to do with, whether it's apartments in Lower Manhattan, whether it's, oh, I'd love to be getting more listings on that estate because it's worth more. So what are people asking about that estate, and answer questions about that location? The options are limitless, but you've just got to do it. And again, Zoom, you can record unlimited time with Zoom. There's nothing to stop you going on a Zoom call, just you, and answering these questions one after the other. Short gap, next one. Short gap, next one. Short gap, next one. Stick it into iMovie, something like that. Slice it up. If you don't want to do it yourself, again, pay someone $10 to do it for you. Please slice this into 5 videos for me, 30 videos for me. Send it back. Why not?
Yeah.
This will take you half an hour a day, and it will boost your SEO, boost your backlinks, boost your traffic. You'll be starting to see as the credible expert that people should listen to, all for the sheer fact that you've taken a step that most people are too lazy to take.
Yeah. So short videos are key. And, because I know when you do long videos, people tend to drift off after a while. A webinar is different because we're providing content and information live. But videos, do quick videos, answer the questions, or just give an explanation of what you're talking about to people. Kind of what I've been trying to do is do these short, Facebook Live videos, just to give people information, give inspiration, guidance on what they're trying to do, maybe where they need to go, how they can be helped.
And I love that, because I think there's so many people out there that it's actually all just doom and gloom. We talk a lot about on our network about hope. There's enough news channels out there talking about the death figures and unemployment rates. We need to focus on what people do have, not what they don't have. And what you might have right now is an empty stomach and an even emptier bank account. Well, that's your motivation.
Yeah.
Because honestly, I genuinely believe it doesn't matter what you do, how you do it, where you do it. You can earn what you want, where you want, from wherever you want, because I'm doing it and I'm nothing special. And I mean that in the most humble way. I love what I'm doing, and I think I'm pretty good at it now because I've worked hard to be good at it. But it was like, if I can do it, you can do it. That's the message I really want to get across. There's nothing special here. I got kicked out of school at 14, for goodness sake. Like, so like that, if I can do it, you can do it.
You have to just take the leap into it, learn a little bit about it maybe, so you can have an idea of how to start.
Oh, well, the best thing to do with that would be, so this is how I do it. Okay. So if I wanted to start a podcast today, I would start researching people who already do it in my industry, not just locally, but globally. Have a look at who's listening, have a look at the types of guests that they get on, have a look at which structures work well, the time lengths they use, all of it, right? You'll also be surprised how many of those would be interesting in doing a bit of a podcast exchange with you, and automatically you're getting plugged into a relevant audience. So there's a great place to start. The next place I would head to is matchmaker.fm, which sounds a lot like a dating website. It's not, I promise. It's a podcasting exchange network where you can create a profile both as a show and as an individual, and you can get invited onto different shows. But what it has is lists of guests looking for shows and lists of shows looking for guests. So go and have a look at who already has shows. Go and have a look at whose audience might benefit from something that you have, and just drop them a quick message. I mean, it's like a Facebook thing. Click send message. It's got a templated message that it'll send for you if you want. If not, you just type in a couple of lines. Hey, listen, I noticed that you do X, Y, and Z. I've been doing this. Sorry, X, Y, and Z. I've been doing this for a while now. I think we could really kind of help each other to grow our networks. It'd be something great, and we could create a great piece of content out of it. What do you think? Go and get yourself guesting on a few other people's podcasts so you can see how it works. I'd say do at least 4 or 5 guest podcasts before you start your own, because you've then had a decent flavor of what to expect and what's out there. Plus, it's giving you time to build up content and connections in terms of some of those people will come on your show. They'll recommend people who can come on your show. Never be afraid to ask podcasters for introductions, because we've all had to do the same thing. We've all been in the same boat looking for content. And actually, as a group of people globally, we're very willing to say, actually, yeah, I've got like 4 people who did shows with me that would be great for you. Let me make an email introduction. Let me create a WhatsApp group.
And that was one of the things I was going to say too, was, I've been sitting here and like everybody else, quarantine, sitting at home, whatever you want to call it. And I've been communicating with people online through social media, mostly LinkedIn. And that's how we connected. I connected with a colleague of yours, and then he just linked us together. And, we had a conversation a couple weeks ago.
Yep.
And then we said, let's, work together on some things, webinar, podcast. And, like I want to promote your show, get your link so I can put it out there.
It's kind of you. Thank you. I'd love it. The first episode aired last night, so I'd love to share that with you. Be gentle with me. I was more critical than most people, but I'd love you to stick around. As I said, our network is about bringing the best and brightest minds together to share this kind of actionable advice. So given that we go across satellite TV in Africa, we talk about introducing the best of Africa to the world and the best of the world to Africa, and it's something that kind of runs deep through what we do. Africa, there's some incredible things happening in Africa, right? And there are so many opportunities that most people haven't even realized yet. And I include people in this webinar and people who are watching this later. I promise you, in 5 to 10 years' time, please remember I told you this. Africa's big problem for a long time has been connectivity. So it's been very difficult to do business with the rest of the world with crappy telecom infrastructure. But over the last sort of 4 or 5 years, China have invested $55 billion into connectivity across Africa. You had villages that 5 years ago were completely off grid, and now they have 60 meg fiber optic lines. It's a completely different world now. And life in Africa, I didn't grow up in Africa. My wife is South African, but I've done a lot of business and traveled a lot across South Africa and across Africa as a whole. you have to be a worker. You have to work hard. It's not an easy place to make a living. There's no handouts, there's no support. It's you, and you got to make it fly. You got a family to provide for. That's on you. And people have to work very hard as a result. So I'm already seeing some incredible innovation come out of Africa in terms of things like fintech and things, because they've found a way of doing business that now works. When you plug it in digitally, it just becomes incredibly enhanced, and the things that are going to come out of Africa are going to be phenomenal. It's already recognized as the next emerging market, with good reason. And you're perfectly positioned. Everybody here is perfectly positioned. I mean, I'm assuming you're all in the States. US culture is huge across Africa, and obviously there's the whole link back to Africa in terms of the African Americans, who many of them can't trace their roots effectively and fully back to Africa, but are still sort of passionate about the culture there. So the cultural exchange and the knowledge learning and the sharing of wealth and business ideas and innovation between Africa and the States should be free flowing. It should be something that can, and you're on pretty similar time zones, and as much as it's not like Australia where they have to be on the other side of the world to talk to them. You can talk to somebody in the morning, it's your afternoon kind of thing, or the other way around, I would imagine.
I think they're like 12 hours.
I think it's the other way around. Yeah. But you get what I'm saying. I mean, time zones do my head in. That's the worst part of my job is when someone says, I'm going to call you at 3, and then the phone starts ringing at 1, and you're like, what is going on?
Who's that? Oh, I forgot different times. Setting up the meeting with you. I'm clicking at my time zone. It pops up 10 o'clock, and I'm like, wait, reschedule. I'm like, oh wait, that was his time zone.
Yeah, exactly. And then I've had people book stuff in at like 4:30 in the morning. I'm like, listen, I love you, but I don't love you that much. I'm not getting up to do a podcast at 4:30. There's no way.
It's being aware of who you're communicating with and where you're located, and how you could, like when we talked, it's like, let's kind of sync a time up, because I know you're way different hours than I am. What would work for you? What would work for me? What will work for the people that will come on and get the knowledge that we're going to provide to them?
Well, look, I'll give you a great example of a stats, right? Because this shocked me, if I'm honest, when I found it out. And there's not many things that shock me. So in the last year alone, the number of podcasters across Africa has doubled, right? That's a pretty impressive stat anyway. Especially when you consider that where Africa is right now is where the USA was with podcasting in 2004. So in essence, a great analogy, a great likeness in terms of question that you could ask is, this is almost like somebody asking you, do you want a website for your business?
Right.
It's going to be a huge part of large companies in terms of employee engagement, training, employee branding. It's going to be a large part of sales and driving brand awareness and business awareness. You have to go where your audience are, and your audience are online. They're binging on content. They're listening to podcasts. They're watching YouTube videos. They're watching Netflix. So if you're not in any of those places, you can't then expect the business to continue the way it was, because it won't.
Yeah. And that's why I wanted you to talk about this, because the world is going to be a different place going forward. There's no doubt about it. Everybody,
100%.
I'm sure people realize it. They're just not sure what or where or how. But I know we talked about it, online presence, social media, and building relationships and branding online is going to be big going forward, bigger than it has been.
Yeah.
Because there's going to be, like, even they're starting to open things up here, but you're going to be limited by what you can do. How long is it going to take to get everything up and online? You're still going to be communicating online. And that's
think about it from so we work a lot with CEOs of businesses, and I'll tell you there's two different mindsets, but they're both ending up at the same place. So you have the companies who are really struggling right now financially, okay? And they are saying, we can't afford the real estate, we can't afford to hire all these people, we're going to need to downsize. So they're thinking about how to use remote working to have less overheads. Then you've got the people at the other end of the spectrum whose businesses are working really well while everyone's remote working, and they're going, why are we paying so much for real estate? We don't need this massive office in the center of this city. Like, we're paying hundreds of thousands of dollars for this thing a year, and everyone's working just as fine from home. Like, let's just, we talk about going from a time-based currency to a solution-based currency. And so many businesses are now starting to do that, because they're realizing, actually, we get more out of people if we can empower them to say, you have the freedom to do this work whenever you want to do it, provided the work gets done. Now, I appreciate not every job works like that, but even the ability to be able to say, look, can I do 4 hours of calls at this time, then take an hour off because I'm going to take my daughter to school, then I'm going to come back and I'm going to get set up and I'm going to sit here in my pajama pants, my slippers, and I'm going to do sales calls for 4 hours. Like, that seems like a pretty good deal for everybody.
I would be happy to share his info. Oh, okay. I got somebody, Andrea said she would be happy to share your info as well.
Oh, thank you, Andrea. That's very kind. Does anybody have any questions? Actually, I appreciate we've gone on for quite a while, but does anybody have anything they'd like to ask? Anything that specific you'd like to know?
Yeah, that's what I was just going to put out there. You know, I opened up a couple mics that I have here. I know there was people on Facebook Live more than on the Zoom call. But does anybody have any questions they want answers to?
No,
Yes.
I think you're doing a great job. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
Oh, you're more than welcome. Look, as I said, real estate is a real passion of mine anyway. So I always like linking with real estate professionals from all over the world anyway, especially if we can plug in sort of what we're doing in terms of the broadcasting stuff and sort of share some advice that can help you get your message out there and let more people know what you do.
Appreciate it.
No,
I'm going to
thank
be
you.
contacting you.
Oh, you should. That'd be great. Thank you so much. I look forward to it. Any questions, feel free. I'll drop my my email and my details over to you after this call, and you can fire those all out.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I have I have the recording, so I'll get the websites out to everybody, and I'll get your information out to everybody. It's my one thing, like when we talked about, is building relationships, talking to people, communicating, and then it's just like anything else. Like I hold networking events here in my area where it's okay, you're going to meet somebody and talk to them, but you don't want to sit there for an hour and a half, talk to that person. You want to communicate with as many people as you want. And then after that meeting, contact them back, set up an appointment, a time to talk, a time to sit down and have coffee, and see where the relationship goes from there. 100%. And it's similar to what you're doing online, reach out to each other, have a conversation. And then if you feel it's a good fit, then schedule time to talk one-on-one individually further on down the road.
I couldn't describe it better myself. That is exactly what we do. We jump on a 10-15 minute Zoom call. If we're bouncing off each other and it makes sense, we say, listen, we're going to have to dart. You're going to have to go. Let's book something in over the next couple of days because we're feeling this. And then there's a couple of emails exchanged back and forth. And then and by the time you get on that call, it's all down to business. It's all about the fun stuff. And that's great because there's no touchy feely. You both know why you're there. You're there to explore how you're going to work together.
And it's a great thing though, because you could work like we were talking. Hey, it's a big world. We don't have to isolate ourselves to like my town or my county or my state.
No, not at all. So I've never liked that because I didn't grow up in the sort of best environment. I didn't have a home growing up. So one of the things I say about everybody that works in my team is I want everybody that works with me to have at least one home. It's a passion that kind of drives everything we do. And it's just sort of something that kind of sits deep. But I knew that the only way I was going to get out of where I was and go overseas and see the world was to work my way around.
Hello?
It was to work my way, across the world, earning money and all that kind of stuff. And I met my wife in South Africa. We've now been married for, she's going to kill me, 7 years, almost 8 years. We've got 2 children. And, that wouldn't have happened if I hadn't have started working with other people internationally. And the only way I was able to do that was by building relationships with people like this. It was building relationships globally. And, I'm a huge fan of, if the economy is not doing well where you are, then don't work where you are. it's not hard.
Switch it up.
You just change it. It's not difficult. You're not a tree. You can either physically move or, look at this. How many places are we talking from right now? There's at least 2 countries going on right here. And it's, I love, how cool is that? 10 years ago, this would have been a couple of $100 phone bill.
Oh yeah, because the technology wasn't there. It was, but only businesses could afford it because it was so expensive.
Exactly. Whereas now, look at us. Here we are. We can just jump on these calls. Most of them are free of charge. They're incredible quality. You get to see the whites of somebody's eyes and see them face to face. And I prefer it to the phone personally. If someone often calls me, I say, "Hey, do you want to jump on a Zoom? Do you want to jump on a WebEx? I want to see you. Like if it's in my hand, I might as well put it there and talk to you."
Yeah, it's funny. I do the Facebook Live and I'm trying to hold it and get it in position. And I'm like, this is crazy. I started using my laptop.
Well, I'll tell you a funny story, right? My co-host, his stand broke. So he's currently filming from his phone, which is on a cardboard shoebox with with elastic bands, like holding his phone in place. It's hilarious. I
You
mean,
do
it's
what you got to do, right?
It's like you do realize this is going out on like satellite TV, and I don't know. He's like MacGyver or something. He's got bits of string, and he's just trying to create a studio out of his house with half a paperclip and some string.
That you do what you got to do to make it work, and then you got to
100%.
go. He probably said, "Oh man, I forgot my stick or my stand or my
Exactly.
tripod."
Oh no, I can't poke it. Well, where's my poker? Yeah,
That's it. How are we going to get it to work? Duct tape, string, stick.
absolutely. Does anybody else have anything they'd like to know? Any questions?
Unfortunately, I joined late. I'm sure I would have had a lot more if I got here on time.
Well, if you got a question.
The replay save it. Yeah.
No, I'll watch the replay and then I'll have questions, I'm sure.
Sounds good.
But
Okay.
we're doing the same thing that you guys are doing. We're doing a lot of Zoom calls and
Yeah.
staying in touch with people. And yeah, I actually am busier now than when I travel 100% of my time.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? I think the incredible thing as well is when you are sort of quarantined like this. So obviously I've worked from home now for 10 years. So it's kind of second nature to me. But my wife was reminding me sort of when I first set up, and she was like, it wasn't, we were always under each other's feet. We were in each other's way. There was things like, some people struggle to get motivated to start work. I had the opposite problem. I never had to take my tie off when I got home and hang it up moment anymore because I was always at home. So I remember once I said this as a joke and it became like a horrible prophecy, which was that if I'm awake, I'm working. And it became true. Second I'd wake up, I'd check my emails. I was on calls until I go to sleep. My family would be asleep before I'd even finish doing calls. I'd be stood up in the kitchen eating my microwave food that was 4 hours overcooked. And, it wasn't a way to live. And I realized very quickly that the best thing that I could do was to recognize what my strengths were within my business and then go and partner with people globally who had other strengths. Which is why I say so wholeheartedly, you can achieve a lot more with a group of like-minded people than you ever could alone.
Phil, I can't stay on the line, but I'd love to learn more about how you did it globally.
Yep.
And network
More than happy.
globally. So I'd really like to follow up with you, Scott. If you can arrange it, maybe the three of us could get together.
Yeah, I'd love to. That'd be great. Happy to.
Thanks. I have to go. I have another call to be on. So
no problem.
It was nice meeting you. Thank you so much for setting this up, Scott.
Oh, thanks, Andrea, for joining.
All right.
Cool. So can you hear me?
I can hear you.
We can hear you.
Cool. So I figured I could just jump in with a voice question.
Far away.
So I know for me, I did at least a YouTube series for a year.
Yep.
We did a once weekly YouTube series, and it became a chore to continue to come up with new content.
I get that.
It really became a chore to come up with new content, and it really burned me out.
Yeah.
And the results were starting to be there, which was good. So I guess my question is, aside from, it seems like everybody just interviews people, right?
Yep.
And that's to a point, like, okay, but it seems like that's what everybody's doing. So what, any ideas you can share as far as?
Yeah. So we decided that I was in the same boat. So we were faced with the problem. I mean, it was slightly different because we were looking at a broadcast channel, but we were faced with the same problem in essence, which was we need more content. We're kind of leveraging all of our ideas right now. I don't really have any more time to commit to more shows. It was all this kind of stuff. So it can very quickly become a chore if you're not careful. But the way that we got around that was, again, using the global partnership. We just leveraged people who also would benefit from the same audience, would bring some traffic with them that benefits what we do. And we just give them a platform to do it. So it's a way of, repurposing content. I mean, you could have entire episodes of things that take you 10 minutes to record. So I'll give you an example. So let's say you're working in you're already working in real estate. So you want to talk to a developer. Okay. You want to make good friends with this developer. They already had a piece of content that they released recently. So what you can do is get in touch with them and say, look, saw your content, thought it was really great. I'd love to repurpose it across my network and show people what you're doing. Perhaps we could jump on a 10-15 minute Zoom call to kind of discuss why it was that you created it, the results that you've had from it. If it's about a particular development, you won an award for that development, who were you up against? Why were the reasons that you won? All that kind of stuff, and get them to do that. And then you've got their content plus the 10-minute interview. you've now got a new episode. That's another week taken care of.
Gotcha. And I know another thing, at least in the real estate space, it's great. It's great to have people that are transparent, and I always love watching people that are transparent. Although I also struggle with wanting to be transparent. Do I really want people to know, gee, how many properties do you have? Gee,
I get that.
How much cash flow you're making? And it's definitely something I struggle with.
So I mean, I show behind the scenes workings of our business and how we do it, but I don't talk to people about how much cash flow we have. I don't talk to people about how many roles or how many stock we're working on at that time, because that's none of their business. That's my business. That you can still be transparent without telling everybody all that stuff. You can talk about fees without talking about how much you earn, because nobody knows how much stock you've got on. So that fee is just a fee. I think transparency is important, but only in as much as, do you know what, Stephen? I'll give you this piece of advice. Don't do anything on a piece of content you wouldn't do with a prospect to their face. So if you wouldn't tell a prospect how much stock you have on and what you're making in terms of cash flow, then don't do it in a piece of content. Take it as far as you would take it face to face, because essentially this is the new face to face. So don't do anything differently to this than you would when you're meeting somebody. That would be the best advice I can give, because you're genuine and you're natural. I mean, the amount of times that we get the feedback that people really, I had it the other day. We have somebody who's constantly on TV shows all over the world. He did a show with us. He sent us a voice note 3 hours later and said, guys, I'm still smiling. Like, that was so non-corporate and so much fun, but also so much information as well. Like, I really enjoyed it. Thank you. And that's a special thing to hear. But we only did that because we were ourselves. I said something. I was on the phone. He was an American guy, and the guest, and my co-host is South African. And I said something, and they both mocked the way I said it. So I said, well, listen, screw both of you two. This is the way this language is supposed to be spoken. Can I just remind you that you're both speaking my language, not the other way around? And it just ended up in a hoot. And I don't think anyone had ever said anything like this to this guy in 20 years. And he really resonated with it. And people who don't resonate with you as a person, you don't want to be doing business with them anyway, bro. Put yourself out there, and the people who resonate with you are the ones you want to be doing business with.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend putting, like, I know exactly what Steve's talking about when people are like, yeah, I make this, I made this, I did this. And,
but that's just showing off.
Just to bump themselves up.
Yeah, but that's just showing off. That's not what your vendor wants. That's not what your average buyer wants. And they don't want to know how much money you're making. They want to know how you can help them, why you're the person to make this process smooth, why you're the person that's going to help them find their dream home, or you're the person that's going to best represent their property. Now, I'll tell you this in a nutshell. I would choose an independent over a large brand that just has all this corporate fluff every day of the week, because I know to that corporate brand, I'm one of a million. Whereas to that individual, I am one of 5, and they're going to put a lot of effort into helping me get the right deal because they benefit from it too. And that's what it's all about. If everybody's winning from a situation, then it's a win-win, without trying to sound too obvious.
That's what we're supposed to create, is win-win-win situations, And
absolutely.
Like Phil was just saying, it's fluff, it's bragging, it's, I don't think, like me, when I hear somebody talk about it, it doesn't inspire me. It just goes, well, how much of that did you really do? How much of this is BS?
Yep.
Just be real about who you are and what you're doing. And,
yep.
That's my theory. And, I'm always about, what can I provide to you? How can I help you? And then I go from there. And like with this webinar, me and Phil could probably talk about everything that's so great and glorious in our life, but we're here to give content to people, not brag about ourselves, give examples, but try to give people information and guidance on what they need to do to grow and build their brand and their business.
Well, for the record, that's how I now judge requests. So I probably get to see about 10 requests, but I think we probably get about 20 to 30 podcast requests a day, sort of radio requests for different bits and pieces. The barometer that I judge everything by is whether or not it's adding value. I don't want to go on a show just to go and talk about myself. That's kind of boring, or talk about where I got to. I get that some people might like that or whatever, but I much prefer to say, never mind the inspirational story. Here's the actionable steps. Like, here's how I actually did it. Here's the stuff that I did, and here's what you can replicate.
Yeah, I think that's key. Not so it's, people want to know who you are, but you don't want to spend a half hour talking about that. It's just providing the information, how you did it, how you got there. When I got into real estate, a lot of the people around me, the older gentlemen that kind of like mentors, they said, you give the information and you give so much and you answer questions. And if the people don't get their answers, that's because they didn't ask the right questions.
Exactly. Look, Steve, I'll give you another example that you could do, mate, when you're talking about your content and sort of getting almost bogged down with it, I suppose. As you said, it became a chore to create. There's nothing wrong with doing a good behind the scenes stuff. I mean, behind the scenes is huge. Everybody loves behind the scenes stuff. I would love to learn more about what you do day to day. I'm sure your customers and your clients would love to learn more about what you do on a day-to-day basis. And what a great way to publicize yourself and show how hard you work for people, because I'm sure you do work hard. So, I'm a multi-purpose content kind of guy. So when we record a show, it goes out as a show, it goes out as clips, it goes out as a podcast, it goes out as audio bites, it goes out everywhere, right? Because each piece of content is going to be worth at least 4 or 5 things to me. It's as simple as that. And if you start to get your mind set in the same place, you start to think about, should I be doing this? Should I be putting these signs up outside this house? Should I be setting this house? Should I be getting any of this stuff ready for the open house without recording some of it? And it's so easy to do this stuff. So imagine this, right? You turn up to your phone and you say, we've got an open house. It's a gorgeous house. I'm going to take you for a quick walk around. And then I'm going to set the property because I've got an open house in 3 hours and I want you to see the difference. And then put the camera on the mantelpiece and just go about your normal thing. When you get it back into editing, you fast forward all of that so people can see you running around like a crazy thing, getting the house ready. And you see a before and after shot. You've got a piece of content from doing something you were going to have to do anyway.
Right. That's funny.
Why not?
Just
it's right
yeah. It's simple things that people don't think about. That's why I'm laughing. I'm like, man, it's so simple to do something like that.
You could even, I always think about how you can take those things further. Get one of those stepometer things to see how many steps you do in each open house. And then at the end of every month, do a compilation of you just running around like a crazy thing with the miles clocking up or the kilometers clocking up to show how far you run for your clients.
Right.
So you can even turn it into a strap line, So we ran 500 kilometers further than any other agent last month for your home,
Yeah, well, you know what? People are going to look at that and be like, man, that guy, look at it. Yeah. You're going to stand out because nobody's doing that,
And it's so easy to do. You've already got a cell phone, just record.
Yeah. Yeah. It's simple things we don't do, that we can do to benefit ourselves and other people.
And it's the simplest things that are often the best things, because nobody, this whole, the reason that YouTube is growing as a medium when TV is shrinking in terms of their numbers is that people like what's real. We're tired of the whole, overdressed, over makeup, Armani suit. Welcome to Sports Desk. We don't want that. I want some guy coming on who goes, welcome to Sports Chat. I am in a foul mood because my team just lost, so talk to him. It's that kind of thing I want to hear because that's funny.
Lisa, you got a question? No. Okay.
Does anybody else have any questions? Anything they'd like to know?
I know my wife just jumped on. She's muted.
She's probably checking where you are. Mine does that from time to time. Just pop on a live chat.
She was, I guess, monitoring the Facebook side maybe because
cool.
She came down and said we got people on Facebook. So she's usually on the call with me doing that, so we can kind of ask the people.
Awesome.
No.
Do we have? Oh,
I'm muted now. Sorry. No, I had a couple people that said they were having trouble getting onto the Zoom.
Oh.
Sent them to Google Maps. So just figure I was giving it don't ask me. I'm just giving it a try.
That's weird.
See yas.
Okay, that's fine. That's weird.
Don't worry.
Maybe there was a character mistype.
We're sending people to Google Maps. Well, we can send them the replay anyway.
Yeah.
Chris, John, in fact, I think we just lost Chris. You've been with us for a while. Does anybody have anything else that they'd like to know? Steven, did that answer your question, bro?
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. It's definitely something I've been struggling with as far as do I want to jump back in? That series ended at the end of 2018.
Yep.
And 2019 didn't do nothing. Haven't done anything. I've been thinking about it, and going back and forth and trying to decide what I want to do. So, you know, and you know, there's definitely I see the value in it, you know, and I also, you know that whatever's put out there is out there forever.
It's the time commitment, which is why I say try and repurpose things you're already doing, because I think that is a good use of time, because you're already going to have to do those things anyway. So you might as well try and make some content from it. The other thing that I would definitely suggest, I mean, I know it's been done, but it's always nice every time it's done, is your services aren't best sold by what you do, right? It's buying a house isn't buying a house. It's the emotion of owning that property. It's the emotion of moving into that place. It's the emotion of selling a place. It can be very emotional, you know. This is somewhere your children took their first steps and you're selling it, and you might be excited about the move, but still upsetting to leave somewhere. So it's quite an emotional process. And I think in this process, whether you're a buyer or a seller, you feel the emotion, right? There is an emotional connection to the whole process. So if it was me, I would play on that really strongly. So I would make a list of all the people who I'd helped over the past 2, 3, 4, 5 years, however long you've been in the industry. Drop them a message, see how they're doing, etc., etc. You know, you could even do that during this time because everyone's sat at home, and just say, listen, I'm putting together a compilation of videos of people who I've helped move, who are really happy and still happy in their homes. Would you mind just doing me a short kind of piece that says, hey, thank you so much for all your help. This is what you did for us. This is, you know, we're still here. We love it. We've now got a little baby who you didn't know from last time, all that kind of stuff. If you just sent out, you know, however many emails to the people over the last few years, you would have an abundance of people come back. And that's content that people love to engage with. People are going to resonate with that because, Steve, it's, you know, they have to know, like, and trust you to do business with you, but they're more likely to resonate with a family or a situation that's closer to theirs, that they can see somebody's sort of testimonial saying, hey, this was my situation and Steve was great and this is what he did for me. That's going to be worth 10 times you saying it. So it's a great way of getting people to market your brand for you. And let's be honest, if they're resonating with people that you did a good job for, the likelihood is you're going to work really well with the new people too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just typing a response to Lisa. She can reach out to me or my wife directly because she was interested in not sure where to get started in real estate.
Sure thing.
So that's a different topic than what we're talking about here, but that's okay. You know, people have questions or concerns that, you know, we're here for them. And, you know, I just told her to reach out to us directly and, 100%. You know, we'll talk to her about what it is that she needs information on.
Great.
So anybody else got questions?
Anybody want to know anything else? John, you've been very quiet, dude. Are you here? Have I sent you to sleep?
No, he typed something, but there he is.
I'm normally very quiet. I like to listen and observe. So
well, I've dragged you into the limelight now, buddy.
No,
welcome.
What I typed was I said thank you. You know, this has been very, very informative.
Oh, you're more than welcome, buddy. Honestly, it's a real pleasure. And as I say, there's so many things that we can all learn from each other in terms of best practice and being successful, and we don't have to make all of these mistakes on our own. You know, if somebody else has already done it, let's learn from their mistakes, stand on the shoulders of giants, and we can all succeed together. It's the way I see it.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're more than welcome, bro.
I don't know. Right now, it's only John, Steve, Lisa. Everybody else is probably on Facebook, so I don't know if there's any comments or questions there. I can't see it from here.
Yeah, there we go. What I'll do is I will send you my new email address, because I got an email address that everything's going to for Billionaires in Boxers. So I'll send you that email address after we record, and you can share that out with anybody who wishes to see it. I'll also send you the link. I think it's a Facebook Live repeat, but I'll send you the link to the first episode as well, so you can check out what we're talking about.
Good, great, yeah. And then I could, I'll post it out there through my connections on Facebook and LinkedIn.
Thank you. It's kind of you.
And you know, help promote it for you to.
That's kind of you. Thank you.
Grow. Hey, you know, that's what we do, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's what it's all about.
You're doing something new, so we'll help promote it and help you grow. And you know,
thank you.
Especially if the information is like what you're talking about. I'm like, people should pay attention to what's going on.
It's important.
You know, I worked at a financial company over 10 years ago, and they built a Shalom Village in, where was that? Rwanda?
Yeah, Rwanda.
Rwanda, where they had the genocide.
Yeah.
The owner of the company, I found out later, his wife was the one with the passion, but because he had the contacts with the business, he went around to companies like, we were just talking about.
Yeah.
And said, listen, this is what we're going to do. They built a school village in the middle of Rwanda. And they had Cisco, HP, Dell, incredible. All these companies donate equipment, and they built housing and a school, and they had electricity come in and a network come in. And when I was last there, the last step was trying to work with the neighbor to have running water brought into the school village. And it was just amazing how I looked at it. And every 6 months, they would send just normal people that worked at the company over there to work on the village.
Yeah.
And all it was orphans and people that worked there to educate them. And they had the school was there, the housing was there, the food was there, everything was there for them. It was a fenced in community with security guards and everything. And I was like, wow, that's amazing how somebody thought about that and put that all together, in a country that's not even near them to help.
And now that place in Rwanda probably has 40 to 50 mega lines for fiber optic.
Probably, yeah. It's like I said, it's been.
So that's what I mean. But that's what I'm saying. The world. I mean, even just in the last 5 to 10 years, Africa isn't recognizable, and I'm really excited to be part of that. And I think there's a huge opportunity for US firms to kind of break over there and do some work and share some best practice. I think, you would even find yourself linking up very nicely with real estate businesses over there who would be more than happy to pay for some of, a slice of your experience. I did very well across the South African real estate market, for example, because it's around 4 or 5 years behind the trends of the UK market. So all I had to do was work a few years in the UK, go down to South Africa, teach them everything I knew, and it was revolutionary. Right. So there's opportunities like this all over the world, and you'll come across stuff like every time I go to Asia, I find another piece of prop tech or fintech that I just go, how did I not know this existed?
Yeah, that's amazing.
And it changes the game. Honestly, it changes the game. And whereas, they say traveling broadens the mind, and used to travel and people would come back as a better whole rounded individual. Well, do around the world in 30 days on Zoom,
Right. Yeah. Or anything, LinkedIn, Zoom.
100%. Just do it. Just get out there. Yeah. And you know what? You'll be so surprised because I find that, I won't say where, so don't put me on the spot, but I find that there are certain locations in the States that I enjoy working with more than other locations. There are certain locations that I don't particularly gel very well with the people. And there's other locations that I don't want to get off the phone because I love the people and we both find the conversation so inspirational that it's fun. It's fun doing business together. But imagine that worldwide. Right. So even just think about the British and the Germans. We're quite close together in terms of geography. We could not be more different in terms of how we do business. The Brits are very polite, and sometimes it's quite hard to know whether somebody is actually interested in doing business with you or whether they're just being cautious to hurt your feelings. Germans are the complete opposite. They will tell you very early on in the conversation, okay, this deal will only work for me if it does this, this, and this, and I can do this, this, and this. Is this something we can do? Because if the answer is no, they don't want to waste your time. They don't want to waste their time. And they're very to the point. This is what I want. Can we do it? And I used to love that from a recruitment perspective because I'd never have to mess about with trying to work out whether candidates are actually interested or not because they just tell me and I'd believe them. But so it's different. You will find that you will really resonate with a group of people. You might find yourself dealing with Kiwis over in New Zealand and think actually there's so much synergy between the way that we live. Or if you're a New Yorker, you might find that heading over to do business in Singapore or Hong Kong, that those people might have a lot of synergy with you. They're used to very wealthy, highly built up, busy cities. Where you've got to be fast, you've got to be agile, you've got to be on the money, because if you don't, there's 10 people behind you to take your spot.
Yeah, that's a fact. I mean, with the way the world is and things are, yeah, you got to be ready to make a move.
100%. And that's it. And if you do that globally, you'll find who you resonate with, and fun stuff just comes from there. I promise. And it's all about momentum. You just got to get started.
Yeah. So I don't know if anybody else has any questions. I know John and Steve are here, so I think we're good with that part.
Good man.
I guess, I don't want to, we can go on for hours.
We could.
But
we
I
absolutely
don't want to, I know you're a busy guy. You got a lot of things going on.
Well, actually, I'm good. It's evening now, so I'm going to go and eat.
Yeah, I know. What time is it there now?
It's 7:25 in the evening.
Okay, that's not bad. So you're 5 hours ahead of us. Okay.
Yeah, so not too bad.
I thought you were farther out than that, but okay.
No, well, actually, and you'd be surprised because Africa, as a whole, because of obviously time goes,
yeah,
they're only ever an hour ahead of the UK, so they're on the same time as mainland Europe. So Central African time and mainland Europe time is the same time. So if you think about it, they're only 6 hours ahead of you. There's no reason why you couldn't do business with the whole of Europe and Africa as well. That's a huge portion of the world to hit.
Yeah, it's fascinating how you can do anything you want throughout the world at any time.
Absolutely, and genuinely, it's fun. Like I love what I do. I love who I'm working with. And I just want more people to do the same. Like I always find it sad when I can see business owners where I was, down in the dumps, hustling, having to do all the jobs, wear all the hats themselves, and it seems like a never-ending slug. You're like, if only I had this much money, I could do this. But every month is about making bank and living month to month, and that sucks. And I don't know every way to get out of that, but I know the way that I got out of that, and that was why global networking and partnering with like-minded people who said, okay, well, I'm amazing at sales and I need something to sell. You've got an awesome product. Why don't I sell your thing and I'll take 10-20% cut? Great. You go and get me a load of sales, line them all up. Great. Now we have too many sales. Now I need people to help me deliver it. Who can help me? Right. You come help me deliver this. You get X slice of the pie, and away we go. And that's how the business was built. At last count, there was 36 of us, but we've been on a big recruitment drive, so I really don't know. We're at least on 39 because I hired 3 more today.
Good.
But it's fun and I love it. And as I said, I'm the only one here in the UK.
Wow. That's good.
So it's fun.
Okay. How do you pronounce your last name?
Palucha.
Palucha. Okay.
It means teddy bear. It really does. Actually, it means cuddly toy, but I always tell people it means teddy bear because I'm not particularly a cuddly toy. I'm not much of a teddy bear either, but I am partial to a good hug.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to let you go so you can go eat.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming on and sharing your
welcome.
knowledge and information. And I hope everybody got a lot out of this. I have the replay, so I'll probably just post it on one of our sites that people can reach.
Sure.
And I look forward to talking to you soon.
We certainly shall. There's lots of things we need to discuss, so we'll hook up soon.
Yeah.
If anybody would like to get in touch with me, feel free to do so. I am literally the only Phil Palucha in the world, so Google me and you'll find all my social media pages and LinkedIn pages and all that kind of stuff. But as we said, I'll send you across my details as well, so you can fire those out.
Okay, that sounds great, Phil. Thanks. I appreciate it. You have a great rest of your night.
Thank you so much. You too. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Take care, everybody, and I'll send out the link to everything.
Thank you so much. You too. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Take care, everybody, and I'll send out the link to everything.